Hello, Columbus. Welcome to Burning Issues, the new CSU TV show that examines the big issues of the day and get some student input and some discussion for our whole community. My name's Nick Easton. I'm an assistant professor of political science. And I'm joined today by two representatives of an organization called SPA. It's been around a little bit of a while, but it's undergoing a resurgence, Students for Political Awareness Association. On my right here is Mark Baker, who's going to act as our House conservative today, I guess. He's a little bit more conservative than me, which includes most of the population, so I don't guess that means much. And on my left here is Chris Jennings, who's not quite as leftist as me, but we'll hold down that part of the platform. Before we go any further, we're going to talk today about income inequality, but before we get started on that, we're going to go to our friend Taylor Watkins, who's going to let us know what's trending on social media on the subject of income inequality.
Hey guys, Taylor here with your social media report. I've noticed that this week and prior weeks, news coverage has been spreading about people feeling unequal in their work environments and their life altogether here in America. Today, Dr. Easton and two of his guests will be discussing social and economic inequality.
So income inequality, it's a hot topic. It's been in the news for a couple years now. It's been in existence for many years, and that's going to be part of what we're going to be talking about today. But it's become a hot topic pretty much since the Occupy Wall Street movement started a few years ago. But it's a complex issue. It's an issue that doesn't define itself so clearly. I mean, what do we mean by income inequality? We always have income inequality in America. That's part of what we look for. But when does income inequality get so stark, so wide, so severe that it represents some sort of a problem? Or does it represent a problem at all? Let me just give you some facts and some figures that we can hopefully set the terrain for today's discussion. The U.S. consistently exhibits higher rates of income inequality than most developed nations due to the nation's enhanced support for free market capitalism. So to some extent, this is an issue of capitalism. A 2011 study by the CBO, that's the Congressional Budget Office, found that the top earning 1% of households increased their income by about 275% after federal taxes and income transfers between 1979 and 2007. At the same time, there was just a 40% increase for that 60% in the middle of America's income distribution. So that vast middle class that we talk about increased only 40% in income, where the top 1% increased 275%. Until 2011, the Great Divergence, as it's called, had not been a major political issue in America, though stagnation of middle class income was. So we were concerned about middle class income, but we weren't really talking about the great disparity between rich and poor. In 2009, the Obama administration had a White House middle class working families task force convened to look at some of these issues. And then, of course, the Occupy movement, Occupy Wall Street it was originally called, but it went all over the country and became a fairly wide movement for about a year, I guess. The so-called Occupy movement started in 2011, and that drew attention to this real issue of income inequality. So, question of whether this problem is serious, whether it exists at all. I'm going to do things a little bit differently this week than I usually do. I'm going to let Mark talk a little bit about how he defines the issue, because the definition of the issue is a really important part of the whole discussion. And there's legitimate and considerable disagreement about whether or not income inequality is really an issue and whether or not that's the key issue or it's a symptom of something else. So if you want to take a few minutes, Mark, and kind of lay out your view of the issue, and then we'll get into some questions and some debate back and forth.
All right. Thank you. Well, as you said, the one percenters with the Occupy Wall Street was a lot about the 1%, it's unequal for everybody else, and things like that. The 1% is anyone in America who makes over $350,000 a year, according to the Census Bureau.
Okay, that's a fact we agree on. There won't be many.
The average of the ultra rich, or the very rich, is 1.2 million, but the ultra rich are skewing that number up higher. 16% of this is doctors, 8% is lawyers, so the other percent could be inherited money, people who've started their own business. The tech bubble certainly helped a lot, but these are the kinds of numbers that are what is the topic of everybody's agenda as far as Washington. And they're trying to make everyone in America feel like they're poor. MTV with their show like Cribs, Lifestyles Rich and Famous doesn't help very much, because people see these programs and think, oh, that's what I want to be, and it looks really easy to get, but they don't understand that these people are putting in a lot of work to get those kinds of incomes in their life.
I'm kind of fascinated by your viewpoint on this, because this may be something we agree on for different issues, for different reasons. But that's this whole, and this is way off my script, so we'll just throw that out and go where we want to go. But this whole trend towards lifestyles of the rich and famous, even the Kardashians, et cetera, this whole showcasing of the wealthy and the glamorous, has that gotten more severe in recent years, and is that a problem? And is that part of the issue?
And thanks to reality TV, of course. Everybody thinks that all they have to do is go get a reality TV show and they'll be rich. And it's not that easy. It's very difficult for anyone to make it into the market of Hollywood and get a show of their own. And people have to struggle and work, and it's hard work to get something like that going, especially if you want to make money in this world. But anybody can do it.
But do those things, Chris, do they highlight those differences more, and is that a problem?
I do think that there's a problem with, as far as television, and that is how, and a lot of what the poorer class, or what you would say, is doing, is basing what they want and their needs off of those shows. But in actuality, I mean, yeah, they worked hard to get to where they need to be, but at the same time, I mean, there will always be, I guess you would want to say, a poorer class than a richer class. But I mean, it's all up to those who, if the people in the poorer class will make it if they try. That's I guess that's where I more or less want to get to. But there are people in the poorer class that try that don't get it, and that's that inequality, and sometimes even that prejudicial where you come from. Like, you won't get a job. It's possible you won't get a job, or you won't be able to get to where you need to be because of your upcoming background. Some people call it old money, some people call it new money, but in actuality, that's where that whole inequality comes from. And I mean, it's possible. It's possible for anybody, I think, to come out of poor class if they really wanted to. But the main issue is the prejudicial of the people that actually try to come out. Will they be able to come out? So
okay,
people do succeed at getting out of that situation. But do you think it's because they are enveloped in the atmosphere? They've been brought up in that poor atmosphere. This is what you're going to have, and this is all you're going to ever get. Maybe it's their psychology of. Yes, I mean, it's, and like I said, it's sort of a trend, and starting, you know, all the way back from starting from before time, starting back during, ancient Rome. What I'm saying? There's always been the haves and the have-nots, and this issue has not just been an issue that started just recently with America 200, 300 years ago, or an issue that started. It's always been a big issue with government, but I would say that. Because who does the dirty work? Yeah, exactly. It's the poor. It's the poor that's going to do the dirty work. But then you ask, so should the poor be getting paid more, or should the poor be getting paid less?
No, but let me interrupt for a minute, because I want people to know Chris's story. Chris is a bad example, and I've already pointed that out to him. Chris, tell us a little bit about your own personal story, your mom's
I try
rise out of poverty. I mean, it was pretty dramatic and pretty impressive.
I mean, I've literally been at the very, very bottom with the poor, and I've been at the very, very bottom. I mean, I've been at the top with the rich and, well, I wouldn't say the rich and famous, but the upper class people of America. And I mean, like I say, I mean, it's just kind of a hard topic for me to debate, because I understand where both sides are coming from. But I mean, like I said, my mom's a doctor. And I just remember her telling me this recently, when, I guess, a little bit after September 11th in 2001. I used to get, when my mom's a single mom, we used to get that income tax check back, and it used to be, everybody, when the income tax season came around, we got to go buy new clothes, new shoes. But once my mom made a certain amount of money, she told us one year that we're no longer allowed to get money back. Now we have to pay $5,000, $10,000 back, and we were looking like, why? So my mom's a single mom. She has to raise 5 boys by herself. So it's not like the way her money is, you could actually almost consider her to be the underclass than the upper class. But I'm not trying to jump off topic too much, but I realize that the rich are rich because I want to say 60 to 70% of those people that are rich and do have money made it there. I mean, you always have your exceptions like Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian, who were kind of like just born in the money. But for the most part, people that actually have that money actually made it. So I understand where conservatives come from. Like, it's like, okay, well, why should we give our money to the poor when they're not doing anything to get it? They would rather collect a welfare check than to actually work and make more money than that welfare check.
Because it's easier.
Let me introduce a kind of next topic or
Okay.
next direction to go, because you really started off the discussion, is question of income tax progressivity. Income tax progressivity basically means that as you make more, the percentage of income tax that you pay goes up. It's not just the amount, but the percentage that you pay goes up. But it doesn't go up on all your income. It goes up on each segment of your income. In other words, on the first 10,000, there's no taxes. On the next 20,000 or something, everybody pays the same rate. But then as you get higher up, you pay higher rates on those higher amounts. It's a little bit confusing to people, but that's what we argue for, what liberals tend to argue for, as a way to even out the income inequality. And I think liberals would also say that one of the reasons that income inequality has increased is because we've gotten much less progressivity in the income tax system than we used to have. At one point in America, and people find this hard to believe, but it's true, in the 60s, the top taxable rate, what they call marginal rate, that top piece got taxed up to 92%, I believe it was, 90-something%. So, and now the top marginal rate, I believe, is 35, 36% or something like that. Mark may know this better than me. But Mark has some other ideas about how to approach this issue of how do we get more out of the rich, get the rich to pay a larger share, and yet at the same time make sure that the overall system is progressive and fair. So Mark, you want to take a minute and talk about your approach?
Sure, and it's not a new approach. It's nothing I came up with. They've done it before, and the last guy that was from Atlanta that was running for president in 2012, he was running on this object as well, but it's a free tax system. So you do away with the IRS and make all the people...
Republicans always want to get rid of the IRS, by the way.
Yeah,
This is standard Republican. Go ahead.
They just take your money. So if I'm Kim Kardashian or someone who has a lot of money and I want to buy a new Toyota hybrid car, I'm going to pay $40,000 for that car, and I'm going to pay, let's say, $5,000 in tax on it. But when I sell it, if I want to sell it to someone who's of middle income and I want to sell it for $20,000, they don't have to pay tax on that vehicle because the tax has already been paid to the government one time. There's no re-taxing. So let's say if I want to go have a steak, I'll go to Golden Corral and get a steak for $8. But if I want a nice steak, I'm going to go to Ruth's Chris and buy one of their nice $50 steaks. But the tax is going to be more on that expensive steak than it is on at Golden Corral.
And I should say, when we were talking about this before the show, we were getting ready for the show, my concern about that is because it's an interesting proposal, but one of the concerns I had is the idea that that would exacerbate the problem that many people see, that the poor are eating less healthy food because the less healthy food would be even cheaper because it wouldn't be taxed as much. And a lot of us believe that poor people are eating an awful lot of macaroni and cheese and other unhealthy foods. And then that's part of the obesity problem, is that people can't afford healthy food anymore.
The obesity problem is based on people that don't want to work out. You don't want to get out and move anymore. You're lazy. You want to sit home, watch your TV, and eat your ice cream on the couch. You need to get people active. Walk outside, go ride a bicycle, get active with your children, go do stuff.
So rich people are more active than poor people?
They have the time, don't they?
That's definitely...
They're out
Go
there
ahead,
playing
Chris.
tennis and golf. And
Jump in here.
I definitely think, definitely poor people definitely have more time than, more wealthier people. But I also do think that, it's going to, of course, the poor are going to have to eat I wouldn't say unhealthier, because sometimes just because it's cheaper doesn't mean it's so much unhealthier. And it's just like buying a pair of clothes. Just because it's cheaper doesn't mean it's bad quality. So, I guess it's more the fact that we need to, you have to. I mean, I guess what we need to do as America. I mean, as far as figure out some way that the good food that we would call, I would say the more expensive food that we would say is more, you know, that the rich people would buy. How can we have the poor people also get that food?
What do they need it for?
I mean, why?
And really, it's more of a class thing. It's more of an image. I'm going to buy this Rolls Royce because I can, or I'm going to buy this Ferrari because I can. I'm not going to drive around a Toyota like everybody else.
Okay, but but the thing about it is, because the money that the rich people have, they have those, I don't want to say those resources to understand what that food does to you. The poor people, they don't have the resources to know that, okay, maybe that if I eat, or even sometimes the knowledge, like because the education system in this, I'm not trying to jump off topic too much, but just because the education system in this area is not as good as this area, like if you go to a higher class area, they're gonna know because their parents came up eating that.
That is not off topic at all. That's one of the,
and then
almost the heart of the issue.
But the person that's in a more uneducated area is not gonna know that they need to buy this, and this because it's better for you. They're just going to buy based off of thing, and what it is it's a generation thing. So if their parents do it, then their parents are going to do it, and all the way down to the bottom. But I mean, if people were more informed of food,
you got the Food Network, don't you? I got the Food
Channel. People do have the Food Network,
They're
but
on TV. They got TV. I know they do. They're
you're
paying
right.
for the cable.
You're right, but
I'm
you always
paying
see
for the
you see most of the time you see a richer person or a wealthier person will watch the Food Channel, not a poor person. A poor person would rather watch, I guess,
Judge Judy.
Exactly.
Oprah.
The more show.
Why didn't
Well, but those shows are aimed at them, maybe.
Yeah, but exactly. But I mean, those people, I guess and like you said about the TV, and they're gravitated to those things. So it's not even so much an issue of, it's an issue of perspective. People see what they see is what they choose to believe. So I mean, it's kind of hard, and it's kind of hard to switch them up and get them off topic of watching what's better for you or what you should be watching, because it's been passed down generation. Somebody needs to start saying that, okay, you don't need to be watching the Mars show because it's not good for you. You don't need to be I mean, not saying you shouldn't be watching MTV Cribs, but maybe you shouldn't be striving to be like MTV Cribs. You know, like, I mean, you don't have to have, a lot of people, I want to say this, probably 1%, maybe even less than that, are the richer people that actually make it on MTV Cribs. Most rich people, they'll have a big house and they don't own a Ferrari. They'll drive a Toyota or a minivan.
Well, that's part of the thing is how many people are looking for some way out so that they can make it to the top. Let me switch it up a little bit, but on the same subject. Recent reports have indicated that U.S. labor productivity is up. And there's been a lot of reports saying, hey, this is great news. Labor productivity is up. But doesn't that mean that most of us are working more and getting less for it? Isn't that what we mean by productivity? I'll start out with Mark.
People are working a lot more, but I believe they're making more money. But there are things that they want, items that they long for that cost more money. So these people think, well, now we've got the cell phones. iPhone 6 just came out, and that's $500. You got your big screen TV. You got your car that runs on electricity. You have all these little items that add up to money. And if people want to work 2 jobs, and you can afford those nice things, then great. But you don't have to. You just have to live within a certain means.
But I'm not sure productivity means that. I think what productivity means is that the amount of product that we're getting for the hours we work or for the dollars we spend on that work is greater, which I think means we're working harder to get less. I
mean, I do kind of think that I do think we are working harder well, as far as like the underclass, I do think they're working a lot harder and getting a lot less. But I mean, I don't think it so much has to do with their working ability or how much they're selling or anything like that. I think it has to do strictly with the economy and how the government is going about handling the economy. So like there's no, I mean, like for example, Obamacare and an Affordable Care Act, the thing where you have to have health insurance, I mean, certain things like that is going to, I mean, just, and I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of other ones, but certain things like that is going to make you, we'll probably work more and probably make more, but in the end it's going to even out. So we're going to be in the same place we were because now we're spending to do those extra things that we didn't ever have to do before. But the thing is, they're not increasing like wages. I mean, not by that much anyway, where it's making a difference. Where it's like, okay, now I can, suffice myself and my needs that I need to make. So,
again, along the same lines, are most American households, and I know Chris's situation is an obvious departing from this, but are most American households dependent now on two incomes? Do two people have to work to support their family now?
If you want to keep up with the Joneses.
Okay. What do the Joneses have that?
Well, the Joneses have all the nice stuff, like I was saying. And the other thing too,
are you describing though the average American family, or are you describing?
If that's what you're going for with the two incomes, the two people need to work in the house. I don't believe that's true.
I mean, aren't there an awful lot of families where two people are working in the house just to put food on the table? And yes, I know.
Are they, or is that something the media?
No, we know that. Oh no! I haven't brought up Fox News. You don't have to say that.
I'm just saying, the media's out there telling you one thing. They're telling you how poor people are starving. They're not starving.
Some poor people are starving.
I
think that's the big problem of people being
I see
poor is the
homeless
fact that they aren't. I mean, it's not the fact that they can't. They don't want to eat. Some people, poor people, choose not to eat. But then you have those poor people that just have those under some circumstances where they can't eat. And I guess some people miss that line, that, and every time they see a poor person, they're like, oh, he has the ability to eat. He just chooses not to. No, that's not always the same. And like you were saying, Dr. Eason, about two, you know what I'm saying, is it, two people working in the house, is that, you know what I'm saying, should that be like a norm, I guess? And I mean, tell you the truth, not for the underclass, yes. I mean, for the underclass, and even for some middle classes that are not the upper middle class or the middle class, yes, two people, you will need more than one person if you want to live comfortably. And you want to be able to see your kids every day. One person working in the house, that one person is not going to see his kids every day.
Yep.
And I mean, even in smaller, even some households have their kids working because sometimes the parents can't do it. So you're telling me that because even though the parents are working their hearts out and they still can provide, it's a bad thing to have their kids, like, I mean, it should be a joint effort, just like, you know what I'm saying, anything else that, as far as families.
What are the kids doing, a paper route?
I
had a paper route when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
But I didn't have
I worked at Kroger when I was 14, 15 years old. I was working at Kroger. You know what I'm saying? And bringing in, I mean, I didn't have to, but I was working at Kroger. You know what I'm saying? Bringing in money in for the house. But I mean, like, aside from me, like, I know I have a bunch of friends that they work just to help support their family. They are, even though they're in high school, they are the biggest supporters of their little brothers, their little cousins, and even sometimes their grandparents and their mother, because whether or not they messed up, or I'm sorry, not they, but their elders messed up or not, I mean, they're stuck in that situation where they have to. So we shouldn't look about how what happened, but as far as what can we do to fix it, as far as now, like, what can they do now to fix it? So
let me stop here for a little bit. And again, this issue has unfolded in a little bit different way than what we had traditionally figured this program would do. So I'm going to depart a little bit from it. This is the point where I would usually do a wrap-up of what we've gotten to, but I think instead I want to turn to the causes of this, because I think there's a general agreement that there's some level of income inequality, and I don't know if we have complete agreement on whether or not it's a bad thing, but there is some level of income inequality. So I want to talk about some of the various hypotheses on what causes this. And some of them are obviously more benign than others. The first one is the globalization hypothesis. That suggests that because of globalization, low-skilled American workers have been losing ground to other countries that can produce the labor at much cheaper, and thus we're having trouble keeping up. And I think there's certainly some truth to that. That's certainly a part of it. Second is a skill-based technological change. Here again, what we're saying is the progress in information technology increases the demands for highly skilled workers, and so those below a certain level of education again are stuck back in the globalization hypothesis, if you will. The superstar hypothesis says that we've set up an economic system where only the really talented get anywhere. And then there's the immigration problem. The immigration hypothesis talks about because of immigration of less educated workers, there are more people to compete for those really low-level jobs. But finally, the most important probably is at least the most politically significant, is the policy and politics hypothesis. And that basically says that we have, since Reagan began to cut taxes on the poor. We've relaxed. I'm sorry, on the rich. We've relaxed regulations. There is less support for labor unions, more support for bankers, etc. And so that we've made a conscious choice to go in this direction. Now, I guess this is supposed to be our lightning round, so we're going to ask you for some quick comments on this kind of thing. Have we made a choice to have more income inequality, and is that a bad thing? Mark?
Well, 2014 marks the 50-year anniversary of when President Lyndon Johnson declared a war on poverty in 1964. And at the time, we had 22% poverty in this country. And after he declared that, up to about 3 years afterwards, we went down to in the teens. So we're about 15. And ever since then, we've been in between 12 and 15%. And as recession hits, it goes up. And as good times go, then things go down.
But that's because we abandoned the war on poverty. So in other words, we were making good progress, and we said, hey, we want to fight poverty. Let's keep that poverty. It's good. In fact, let's see if we can make more of that and less equality. Right, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I mean,
the lightning round is very frustrating.
Yeah,
I do that
I
on
mean,
purpose.
I wanted to touch on that globalization. Just one point, real quick. But like you were saying, I mean, I think economic inequality will always exist. And as far, and I'm just going straight to the point. Economic equality will always exist in some shape, form, or fashion. There will always be,
because we know communism doesn't work.
Exactly. There will always be a rich, and there will always be a poor.
So Cuba's still there,
but we don't know that socialism doesn't work.
Apart.
Yeah, and we know that communism doesn't work.
I'm pretty sure.
Socialism. Half of Europe is socialist.
I'm pretty sure that each and every one of those countries, whether or not they say there was some form of economic inequality, there was some form of it in some form, shape, or fashion. I mean, there will always be. You will always have a rich. You will always have a poor. Without the poor, you have nobody to make your McDonald's. You have nobody to pack your groceries. You have nobody to make your cars. You know what I'm saying? Without the rich, you have nobody to buy that stuff. So there will always, because of that, there will always be that difference in, you know what I'm saying?
And the marketing people that direct their advertising at those people, and the politicians who cater to the rich and you have fears to the poor.
But that doesn't mean they can't be controlled. That doesn't mean we can't. I mean, here's the thing that I can't figure out. Are you telling me that if I raise a billionaire's taxes by an extra million, say, he's going to say, well, I quit now. I'm not going to do these great things for our country anymore because you've taken away all my incentive.
No, he's going to put his $1 million in an offshore account so you can't touch it.
That's right. At which point
and you're going to.
At which point then we pass a law saying, and if you want to bring it back here, then we're going to tax you. And he's going to find out that he needs us more than we need him. Go ahead.
This is where my liberal side. This is where my more liberal side, more than my conservatives, come aside. Yeah, that's true. But with that power, even though if they worked there to get to where they needed to be, there has to be some sort of responsibility.
Right.
If that money was just dispersed among all the poor, because I told you they didn't have the education to know what to do with that money, what do you think? We would all be poor.
This war on poverty has cost $22 trillion, and what do we see for? We still have 100 million poor people in the country.
Wait a second. The war on poverty ended 40 years ago, 45 years ago.
I think Obama's still running on the campaign.
No, we are doing absolutely nothing about inequality in America. And again, I guess I'd wrap up with that point. Maybe that's the American dream. Maybe that's the American way, that there should be inequality. Is that to some extent?
I think there's always going to be. Chris was saying.
There's always going to be. And I mean, I wanted to quick touch on this globalization before we let loose. Globalization, I read a book by Thomas Friedman. I'm reading it right now in one of my classes. It's called The World is Flat. And what he talks about is these different type of ideas, these different type of, and like you said, skill-based things, flattening the world, making it an even playing field. But by also making the world an even playing field, there will be some that will have to suffer. And what it is going to be, if some people like to call it natural selection, is the strong is going to the strong is going to be strong, and the weak is going to weed itself out. And that's it. And as far as anything is concerned. So and then even when we do get to that point where we're all rich, there will always be that class that didn't make it as far as them. So,
but let me let Mark make one last point, and then we'll wrap it up, because you somehow you have to defend this inequality. I would say it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I don't think it's as bad as everybody thinks. I believe that it's there, and the people in America that think they're poor are not poor. I've been to Afghanistan. I've seen how they live, and that is poor.
Okay.
They don't have running water. We take running water for granted in this country.
Okay, I mean, this has been a pretty good discussion. I think we've brought out some points. It is obviously a huge issue that we can't possibly cover all of, but I think we've gotten to the contours of the issues. Basically, that there is some level of inequality, and in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad, and what we can do about it is a discussion for another day. We're going to end this discussion there, and we're going to turn to Taylor Atkins again, who's going to tell us about next week's show.
Thanks, guys. Once again, you brought us some great opinions. Join us next week for a new topic, new guests, and new burning issues.